Big welcome everybody to our Case Flower School Christmas wreath making class. My name is Jeanette and I'm from Case Flower School and we're based here on the South Circular Road in Dublin. At this stage, hopefully everybody has received their kit. Now first of all, I'll go through some of the items that may be in your kit. Obviously we've sent out different materials to everybody, so it'll be good fun to see what everybody else is doing and to see the different types of materials, styles and colours being used. So first of all, in your kit, everybody will have a fresh spruce ring. This spruce actually comes from Kerry. So there's a company in Kerry called the Irish Green Guys, and these create all these fresh spruce bases. To preserve them and to keep them fresh, they are better stored outside. So if you're not ready to actually make your dough wreath today, just maybe spray it with water, leave it outside until you're ready to decorate it. This brace will last approximately 3 to 4 weeks, no problem at all. The next item that you will have in your kit will be some fabric ribbons. I'll go through a selection of them because again, everybody will have different ones. We normally send out 2 different types. Again, your types could be different to these. And that's so that when you're choosing to put your bow on, you can choose to put one bow on, or again, you can do a double bow. And I'll be demonstrating some bows in a couple of minutes. The other item in your kit will be some paper ribbon. You'll have approximately 3 to 4 metres of this ribbon, and it tears really easy. You will need a scissors, by the way, and you can cut off a piece about 50-60 centimetres in length, and what you're going to do is tear it into thin strips. These strips will be used to tie up the centre of the fabric bow when we get to it. The other item that will be in your kit will be a bunch of wires. I have unravelled my wires, but they'll probably be something like this bunch here. And these are 20 gauge wires. Now there's plenty of wires in the bunch. So even after making the wreath tonight or today, and you want to make a second one, you probably will have enough wires left over to make a second wreath if you go and you purchase your materials maybe in a local shop. The last thing that you will have in your kit is a bag of tricks. Okay, again, everybody's bag is going to be different, so as I'm making the wreaths tonight, I will show you some of the items that you may have in your bag for making your dough wreath. So first of all, we'll start by making the bow. So I'll start off with this velvet ribbon. Now again, everybody's going to have different ribbons, so I'll demonstrate a couple of them. I'll show you how I attach the bows to the dough wreath. And then maybe if you're doing this as a Zoom class, you can look at each other. Or again, I will end up demonstrating approximately 3 different styles for your class today. So with your strip of ribbon, the best thing to do is try and imagine that you are wrapping the ribbon around your neck like a scarf and crossing it under your chin. Now when you go to make the bow, you're probably all wrapping it around your neck at this stage, but when you go to make the bow, it's not possible to do it when it's around your own neck. So all you have to do is kind of pretend. So pretend you're getting the ribbon, the same sort of technique as if you were wrapping it around your neck and crossing it under the chin. And you can make sure that the 2 tails are approximately the same length. But you can adjust the size of the bow by making what I call the neck of the bow, by making the neck of the bow a little bit larger or a little bit smaller. My finger here that I'm shaking, we call this the back of the bow. And my finger here in the front, we call this the front of the bow. So to make the bow, you bring the back into the front and you turn it on its side. In a flower shop, we often call this a figure 8 bow. If I turn it sideways, it kind of has the outline of a figure 8. What we have to do now is squeeze in the centre of the number 8. Now it's up to you to describe it. Do you want to make a pleat? Or do you call it a gather? Or do you want to call it a squeeze? Or a squash? Or a pucker? In other words, get it in there as tight as you possibly can. Then using one of the thin pieces of ribbon that you tore off previously, you're going to wrap that around the centre. Now if there's somebody in the room with you, ask them now to tie these 2 pieces of ribbon together really, really tight into a double knot. If you're like me and you're on your own in the room, rest it against your chest or your stomach and then you will be able to tie the knot. Don't worry about the bow maybe getting a little bit squashed, it'll be absolutely fine. Pull the double knot really, really tight. In other words, tie a double knot on top of it and pull it, as I said, exceptionally tight. You're able to go back then and you can pull the tails downwards and you can put your fingers or your hand in between the loop to kind of like stretch them and give them a little bit of shape. I'm now going to show you how to do that bow using organza because again in different kits we send out different materials. So with the organza, this time you keep it squashed in. as if you were putting the scarf around your neck and crossing it under the chin. But now you've realised we don't actually make it around our own neck. So there you go again, around the neck, cross it under the chin, and don't worry about the organza, about keeping it squashed in. It actually makes it easier. The back of the neck is where I'm wiggling my finger. You bring the back of the neck in level with the front of the neck, and again you can kind of start to see the figure 8 of the bow. Using a thin piece of that green florist ribbon, you're going to tie it around the centre. And by the way, the colour of the ribbon doesn't make any difference. I just used the green because it kind of like camouflages in with the colour of the green base. But it is possible to match the ribbon with the colour of the bow if that's what you prefer to do. So again, we're tying a double knot and we're pulling it nice and tight. We're going back then and pulling the 2 tails down. You can trim them shorter if you want. And again, you can get the organza now and you can open it out as full or as wide as you want. To tie the bow onto the wreath frame, you use these 2 green strings. Sometimes you may look at your base, and as I said, these were made in Kerry. And sometimes it's what I would call maybe a gap or a space. To me, it would be down here. This is normally the area when they were making the wreath, it's probably where they started and where they finished. Now, if you're looking at your frame and you can't find a gap or a space, well then just completely ignore what I'm saying now. It really doesn't matter. But in my case, and I purposely picked a frame that had like that little bit of a space, that's where I'm going to tie my bow on. So that basically decides what area you're going to tie the bow. Now what you do have to decide is, do you want your bow like facing downwards at the bottom of the wreath, or would you prefer the bow to be at the top of the wreath and again pointing in that direction? Again, it really doesn't make any difference, and don't overthink it. I prefer my bows to be at the bottom of the wreath, so that's where I'm going to tie it. So using the 2 green strings, I'm going to wrap them in between the foliage and bring the 2 green strings to the back of the bow. But I'm also going to show you how to do this as a double bow. So I'm going to start with the organza bow first. So bring your wreath frame over the edge of the table. Get your 2 green ribbons, your skinny ribbons. Wrap them in around the foliage. Don't worry too much what direction the bow is facing. We can fix that in a second. Turn the frame upside down on the table. Tie a double knot. Make sure it's nice and tight, and then using your scissors, cut off the kind of like the spare pieces that are left over. Turn the base back up the right way on the table, and you will find the bow is kind of sideways. So just like jiggle it around, you know, the way, make it face the right way. You'll often have to put your fingers in between the loops just to fix them into place. And as I said with that organza bow earlier, I would prefer the strings to be a bit shorter, so I'm pretending I'm in a hairdresser's and I'm giving them a little trim. I'm going to hold this up now just so that you can see what it looks like. I'm now going to tie the velvet bow in the centre of it. So using the 2 green strings again, I'm going to catch them around the centre of the organza bow, around the frame. Don't worry about what way it's facing, I can fix it in a minute. Turn the base upside down on the table. The 2 green strings, tie them together, double knot as tight as you can. Using your scissors, cut off the raw bits that's left over. Turn the frame back up the right way on the table. Fix the bow, because it's gone sideways. Pull the tails down, put your fingers in between the loops, pull the organza out behind it, you know what I mean? Now again, you may have chosen to just use 1 bow. And the thing is, even when the class is finished, it's not a big deal to cut the bow off and tie on another one. It'll look completely different. But as I said, I just wanted to give you an idea of what it's going to look like with the 2 bows on it. Now I'm going to show you using another frame. And this gives you a chance to catch up, because as I said, we're all going to be at different stages. So in other people's kits, they may have like maybe hessian ribbon. And this kind of suits, especially if you're using a lot of natural material. In saying that, the decorations I'm going to put with this particular ribbon tonight is going to be far away from being natural. I also have kind of a burgundy organza, just that little tone in with the colours, the decoration I'm going to use. So I'm going to do the same sort of bow, like the collar bow, bring the back part into the front, and then using a thin piece of the green ribbon, I'm going to tie that around the centre. This, as I said, is just giving everybody a chance. The people that they have seen the bow demonstrated using the material that they have, they can go ahead now and tie on their bow, while the other people can just wait until I actually get to your materials. Again, I'm opening out the organza, and I'll probably give that little bit of a hair trim afterwards. Now with the hessian ribbon, it's very like the velvet ribbon. So again, around the neck and cross under the chin. Hold the back of the neck and bring the back of the neck level in with the front of the ribbon. Turn it on its side so that it looks like a number 8. And then pleat, squeeze, gather or squash in the centre of the number 8. And using a thin piece of your green cheap florist ribbon, that's like a waterproof ribbon, and you can always buy that in a local flower shop, by the way. We're going to do the same thing, going to tie a double knot, nice and tight. I can then go back, pull down the loops, open out the loops by pull down the tails, I meant to say. Put your fingers and your thumbs and your hands in between the loops and kind of stretch them out. I'm also going to show you another trick now, how you can fancy up a little V at the end of the material. So at the end of your tail, where it's probably cut straight across, if you fold that over in half. Now it doesn't matter, is the open side of the fold on your right, or is the folded side of the curve on your left? That doesn't really matter. Well, what's important is that you start on the open side. So using a sharp scissors, starting in the corner, let's flatten that down there, you're going to cut on a 45-degree angle. And when I open it out, that's how you get that little V, do you see in the centre? I'm going to do it again. So, straight piece of ribbon, fold it over in half. On the open side of the ribbon, that's the side you start on. A lot of people start on the folded side and it turns out wrong. So on the open side, cut on a 45-degree angle, and when you open it out, that's how you get that little V. Now back to our organza ribbon. Again, I'm going to look at this frame. To be honest, it's much of a muchness, so with this frame, there's not really a gap or a space. So I'm just picking an area. I'm wrapping my 2 green ribbons around it, turning it upside down on the table, and I'm going to tie a knot. Now hopefully anybody that is working away there, making their bows, if you have any problems at all, what you can just do is hang on and just watch the demonstration again, because I am going to do another base using kind of like silver ribbons, because I know that I sent out some people the kits and they have the silver material in them. Again, I've just tied the hessian bow now to the centre of the organza bow. Again, turned it upside down on the table. I'm tying a double knot here at the back, and I'm going to cut off the strings. I'm turning it back up the right way, and now I'm going to fix the bows. Again, put your fingers in between the loops to open them out, pull the tails downwards, and I kind of feel with this organza, like the previous one, it needs a little bit of a hair trim, so I'm just going to cut straight across, and that's what it looks like there with the organza bow and the hessian bow at the bottom. Again, I've used a double bow. If you would prefer just to use a single bow, that's fine. Now again, if you're happy enough and you want to go ahead, off you go. But for anybody else that in their kit that they have the silver ribbon, I'm just looking for the silver organza now, I'll get it for you. Oh, here it is. So I have this fabulous silver glittery ribbon. I also have kind of like a silvery kind of like neutral sort of organza. So I'm going to do the same thing. Around the neck, cross it under the chin. Grab the back of the neck and bring it in level with the front of the neck and squash it in. And you find with the organza, it's a lot easier to squash it in than it is with the other fabric materials. Again, just because I've ran out of ribbon, I'm just cutting up more of that kind of paper ribbon. You probably still have plenty of it. You're going to wrap the green paper ribbon around the centre. I'm saying green, but remember it can be any colour. We're going to tie a double knot at the back. If there is somebody in the room with you, ask them to tie them knots for you. It does make life easy, especially when you're only starting. And with the organza, you're able to go back and open out the organza as full or as fluffy as you wish. And again, the tail pieces, you can decide afterwards if you want to give them a little hair trim. And I normally just cut straight across with organza. Now this silver glittery ribbon is fabulous, isn't it? Especially if you like a little bit of bling. And I'm going to show you again where around the neck and cross it under the chin. Try and get these 2 tails kind of similar lengths, but you can always cut them shorter afterwards. The back of the bow, you bring it in level with the front. Just take the little crease out of it there so you can see the shape. And if you turn it on its side, you can kind of see the number 8. You're now going to squeeze, gather, pleat, squash, squeeze or pucker in the centre of the number 8. And then using a thin piece of the florist ribbon, you tie that around the centre. Now after 6 bows, I'd be hoping at this stage everybody has mastered how to make the bow. So I'm going to tie these 2 bows on, and again just to let you see what it looks like with the silver bows on the base. And then, as I said, if you decide that you just would prefer 1 bow, that's absolutely fine. I might show you that little trick again on the fold at the bottom. So what you do is you fold the ribbon over in half. On the open side of the fold, you cut on a 45-degree angle, and that's what gives you that little V at the end. With a ribbon that's actual fabric, this will actually delay the fabric fraying on you. You know the way it kind of goes all like unravelled at the bottom. So it's a handy little trick to know how to do it. Now again with this base, I'm looking at it, my eye is drawn to this area here, so that's where I'm going to tie the bow on. Most of my bows I seem to put at the bottom of the wreath. With Scass, a couple of years ago, I always put the bows at the top of the wreath. It's kind of just at the moment it seems to be on trend to put the bows at the bottom, but really there's no right or wrong. Maybe if you're making a second one, you could experiment and you could try it. Now again, I'm after pulling that off by accident, and because I've already cut the ribbon, I need to tie another piece of ribbon back around it again. So make sure when you're tying yours, sometimes it's good to see something going wrong for me, isn't it? Make sure when you're tying your bow on, that you tie your double knot really tight. And when you're cutting off the little raw bits, don't cut too close to the knot that you made, because that's obviously what happened to my one there. But again, we'll just tie our double knot nice and tight. There we go. And then we'll cut off our raw bits without actually cutting the knot off this time. Fix our bow around, and again you can unfluff or fluff out the ribbon as wide or as full as you want. And on top of that then, I'm going to tie our glittery silver bow. So I'm just catching the two little bits of green ribbon in through the centre of the organza. I'll turn it around in a second, it's on sideways. Turn the wreath base upside down, tie a double knot, and then I'm going to cut off the strings. Now, hopefully at this stage, everybody has the bow made and you're ready to tie the bow on. If you have an option, you can always pause this video and wait till you catch up, and then you can play it again. Or again, you may have an option to rewind it if anybody is struggling. But I'd say at this stage, most of you have it. So there I am, I have the bow now. So now I have a wreath base with a silver kind of organza and glittery bow. I have one with, again, organza and our Hessian bow. And then I have one, it's a bit flattened now, but I can fluff it back out again, our organza and a red velour or velvet ribbon. And now we're ready for the next stage. I've just realised that I actually posted out some of these fabrics in your kits as well, so I better demonstrate this. Sure, some of you are saying, God, you never done my ribbon. So these come in different colours. I have the tartan, but you may have got kind of like a check one, or one with a poinsettia flare on it as well. So these are made exactly the same. It's just that it's easier to do these flat on the table. So lie your fabric flat on the table as if you're wrapping it around the back of somebody's neck, and then kind of like bringing them to front and crossing it under the chin. Now I'll hold it up so you can kind of see it, but as I said, it's easier to do it flat on the table. You're going to bring the back part into the front. So again, I'm just going to adjust it here on the table. Bring the back part into the front. And in the centre of it, I'm now going to do the pleats and the gathers. So the same idea. These are a fabulous bow. And the thing is, if it doesn't work out first time for you, it's not a big deal to trim or cut off the string. You've seen in one of the previous ones, mine popped off easy enough. You can just cut off that string, and again, you can do it, you can try it a second time. So the secret really is pull the knots really tight. And if you do find it difficult to hold while you're tying the knot, see if there's somebody in the room that can hold it for you. This particular ribbon has like a wire in the edge, so when I fluff it out, you can see it really holds its shape. My tail piece is at the end. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fold them over in half, and I'm going to use the scissors, and I'm going to cut on kind of like maybe a little bit less than a 45-degree angle because the ribbon is so wide. You see, just to get that V at the bottom. And this would be a ribbon that definitely, by cutting on that angle, it would stop it fraying. So again, we cut another little bit off this one. There we go, there's a little V. And there's your bow now, ready to tie onto the wreath. So maybe like instead of the velvet one, just to kind of show you what it would look like, do you see, instead. And probably on its own, it will be sufficient. So hopefully that now is the bow section covered. Now in your box, or could be in the kit, you have approximately 6 pine cones. Now if you got any more than 6, say nothing, because normally when we're throwing them into the box, there's always a few extras thrown in. So the pine cones have to be wired to get them onto your base. So the best thing to do with the pine cone is have a look at it, and these are called the petals, and normally they're open. At the very bottom of the pine cone, the petals there are closed and they're real tight, so it's not possible to stick any wires down there. So you try and look for the lowest layer of petals as close to the bottom that are still open. Using the long wires that I sent out in your kit, and if you ever go to buy extra of these wires, they're called a 20 gauge wire, and make sure that you buy them about 10 or 12 inches in length. I would have sent out approximately 12 inches. Rest the wire in between the petals as low down on the pine cone as possible, but leave about 3 or 4 centimetres of the wire sticking out. The long piece of wire that's left over on the opposite side, you're going to tease that or manoeuvre it in between the petals all the way around until it literally meets the small piece of wire that you left sticking out. And if you nearly like crisscross them, you know, they're like cross one over the other. I'm going to try and hold my hand behind this, trying to hold it and show you at the same time. See where they kind of crisscrossed? And then what you're going to do with the tips of your fingers is just hold it between your finger and your thumb and give it 1, 2 or 3 twists and stop. Don't keep twisting until that little bit of wire is completely gone, because all you'll have is a sore thumb and you'll blister on it. I'll show you again. So you get your cone. Again, you can see this one, the petals are up a little bit higher on it. So place the wire in between the lowest petals that are open, not always at the very end of the pine cone. Leave about 3 or 4 centimetres sticking out. The long piece of wire, you kind of manoeuvre that in between the petals all the way around till it comes to the other side. Sometimes it works on the outside of the pine cone as well, until they crisscross over each other. Grip it with your finger and your thumb and give it 1, 2, maximum 3 twists and stop. And that's your pine cone word. So you have to do that to 6 pine cones. Now maybe somebody there, when they took out their cones, they were painted with white paint. Now I didn't paint them like that, the pixies did. We buy them in like that, and again they just look that little bit different. Or you may see that what some flower shops do is they spray them with gold or silver spray. And again, if you're doing maybe a gold wreath or a silver wreath, it looks just that little bit different. So get your 6 pine cones wired, and while you're doing that, I'll show you some of the other materials that may be in your kit. We sent out a lot of red ones because the red ones are probably very traditional and probably one of the more popular ones. Hopefully you weren't disappointed in the colour that you got. So in the particular kit that I have, there's a couple of these red poinsettias. And they kind of have a velvety velour feel to them. And they're on like a plastic stem which has a wire inside it. It's quite strong. Now there's 3 of them in my bag. Your bag, you could have 4 of them, 5 of them or 6 of them. The number actually doesn't matter. But the minimum you'll have is 3. Also in my kit, I have what's called a pick. Now the picks vary in selection. You could have gold ones, silver ones, or again you may not have them. You may have something completely different. But again, these have like a strong plastic stem and there's a wire inside them, so they're really easy to insert into the door wreath. And maybe in the future, if you want to make another door wreath, this is something that you can pick up in a lot of, like, say, Christmas decoration shops, because they sell them for maybe inserting into the branches of your Christmas tree and also your garland. The other item that I have in my kit is a couple of baubles. Now again, all the shops sell baubles, and again, you may not have baubles in the kit that we sent out to you. As I said, I'm trying to cover as many different selections here as possible. So you know with a bauble, when you're hanging it on your Christmas tree, there's a little string on it. Well, where that string is inserted into the bauble, that's where you're going to place the wire. So anybody with the bauble, you will have to wire it. So the other items, we got away with murder, we don't have to wire them. So what you're going to do is you're going to insert the wire through the little hole where the string was normally going through. And all you do is you're bringing it through about 3 or 4 centimetres and you're going to bend it over in half. So there's our 2 little pieces of wire, do you see together? It's a bit like the pine cone. Remember with the pine cone then, I twisted the wires together with the tops of my fingers. You could do exactly the same thing now. Or what I actually find it easier to do is just grab the longer wire and just wrap it around the shorter wire. But if you want to just twist them together with your fingers, that's absolutely fine. So I'm ready now to decorate this wreath. So get a little plan in your head, but without overthinking it. So I have 3 poinsettias. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place one at the top of the wreath, directly opposite the bow. Now by the way, if you prefer to start with the pick or start with the cones, that's absolutely fine as well. Probably watch how this is going, and then if you want to go ahead and start, that's fine. And then I'm going to move on to a second variety and then a third variety, a bit like how I did it with the bows. So first of all, to show you, I'm going to hold it up in the air when I'm doing this. This is just for the demonstration. So you pick a point, that's where I want the poinsettia to go, opposite the bow, about there. So you stick the poinsettia through the greenery. Sometimes you have to prod it. You could nearly tap it with your hand there. Do you see that's gone right through? And can you see where the stem came out through the other end? Where the stem came out through the other end, what I'm going to do now is make what I call a U-bend. So I'm going to literally buckle up that plastic stem into a U, and I'm going to stick it back up into the frame. And that's what will secure the poinsettia in place. And there's a little flower. And that means you've no raw wires sticking out the back. Now it's very awkward to hold that up in the air and try to do that. So when you go to do your one, that was just to show you the technique. Bring the frame over the edge of your table. Pick the point where you want to insert the poinsettia. So I'm going to go for here, nearly in front of my stomach. Get the stem and prod it until it goes right through. Like as I said, you can nearly hammer it with your hand. I'm going to hold it up so you can see that's where it came through the other side. But if you use your other hand then to grab that stem, make a U-bend and stick it back up into the frame, that'll secure, can you see your flare in place? Now I'll show you how I can do that without lifting it up off the table. So I'm going to spin it around on the table because I want to put the third poinsettia over the opposite side. So again, we're sticking the stem down into it. Then the free hand is going to grab the wire, make a U-bend and stick it back up into the base. And there's our 3 poinsettias you see inserted into it. So then if you have something different, so in my case, I have a couple of picks. Maybe you have little pieces of glitter. I'm going to come to the glitter in a few minutes. So in between each of the poinsettia heads, I'm going to put one of them picks. And I'm using exactly the same technique. I'm sticking it down into the base, and where the free hand meets the stem, or kind of feels that stem coming through the other side, I'm making like a little U-bend and I'm sticking it back up into it. And I just feel I could do a third one over here. So I have placed in 3 of the poinsettias and 3 of the picks. Just going to fix this one here, it's just a little bit loose. That was the one I was holding up in the air. It's very awkward to do it, holding up in the air. And that's what it looks like. Can you see there with the 3 poinsettias and the 3 picks, but yet there's no wires you see sticking out the back. Everything has been hooked and stuck back up into the base. Now I have a couple of baubles here. Now you don't have to put baubles into it, and again you may not have got baubles in the kit that I sent out, but just some people did, so I just want to show them how they can add the baubles in. So pick a spot, and same idea, these are on wires, so the wires go down into the base, no problem, they just slip in, they do. And the wire that comes through the other side, because the wire is longer, make a bigger U-bend and stick it back up into the back of the base, and there's your bauble secure. You can pick a completely different spot altogether, and I'm going to stick in the second one. Again, they go in real easy, the baubles. These are so simple to stick in towards the plastic stem that's a little bit thicker. And then over here, I think I'll put in the third one. Now again, I'm not always matching the other side. You know the way your eye kind of will be drawn to a little spot, and that's maybe where you might decide to put the bauble in. As I said, don't overthink it. That's the best thing to do. So this is what it's looking like so far. Now the last thing I'm going to add in is the 6 pine cones. And I bet you got 7 in your box. Now when you're adding the pine cones in, I like some of the pine cones to be on the outside of the decorations and some of them to be on the inside of the decorations. So they're not actually in between each item. And that kind of broadens the design and makes it look a little bit chunkier. So again, pick a spot, stick the pine cone, the wire in through the base, buckle it up underneath. And then the great thing is you can manoeuvre the pine cone and you can get it to face whatever direction you want it to go. So if you want to bring a second cone, see that I'm working to the inside of the base this time. So again, stick our wire through. Don't worry that's not facing the way you want it to face. Buckle the wire underneath and then go back and manoeuvre the pine cone into where you want it to go. So that's 2 in. So here's a third one over here. Just again, just to show you what it's looking like. The pine cones are lovely. Like personally, I love the pine cones going in and out through them. And even maybe somebody here tonight, maybe when, I'm saying tonight, today time, maybe when you're making your wreath, you might maybe put the pine cones in first and put the baubles in second and put the poinsettias in third. There's absolutely no rule. You can use whatever system, whatever, whatever angle you want, and you don't have to use everything that I put in the kit, that way. Or again, if the Christmas tree is beside you and you want to swipe a bauble off the Christmas tree, you have plenty of wires and off you go, wire in one of the baubles off the Christmas trees, or to be honest, like any little decorations. So there I put in our 7 pine cones, and that's what our base looks like. So that's it decorated. And the very last thing you need to do is you need to put like a ribbon on it for carrying it, but also maybe to hang on your door. So I'm going to cut a long strip of ribbon. And again, I sent out lots of this ribbon, so you'll have plenty of it. Right, 1.5 meters thereabout. I'm going to bring it in through the hole of the ribbon. But rather than coming up and covering the decoration, what I'm going to try and do is stick it in between the greenery, that way, try and hide it under some of the decoration and some of the greenery, but it is still around the actual base. So just to show you there, you see with the 2 of the pieces of ribbon, the way they're around the base. Lie it on the table and tie a knot now. A single knot is fine, you needn't do a double knot, it's not going to unravel anywhere. And then the 2 spare pieces of ribbon here, you can tie these together in another knot. Or you can just use them to tie onto the door handle or onto your door knocker, whatever you prefer. And then I'm going to just cut off the little strings there. So it's like a little handle then for carrying it. But what I would advise you to do is go to the likes of, I'm going to say Tesco's, and sometimes Lidl and Aldi have them, and the walk around shops, Eurosavers, Deals and Mr Price. They're called command hooks. And they can stick to the outside of your door or the inside of your door, and they don't mark the door. And if you decide to put the hook on the inside of the door, you can hang your wreath on the outside of the door. Make this ribbon a little bit longer, okay, that you can bring it up over the top of the door and you hook it on the command hook on the inside of the door. To be honest, you'll work it out. So anybody that feels confident enough to go ahead and start on their wreath, off you go. But some of you that have maybe the silver kits, I haven't used any of the items yet that you have. So just hang on, and I'm now going to move on to our second door wreath. So in this particular kit, we have these, they're like a handmade poinsettia flower, and they come flat in your bag. So what you have to do is take each petal out and kind of open it out and give it a little bit of a curve. Now again, it's completely up to you how wide you want that curve or how wide you want the petals to open out. I'll give you an idea like how I'm doing mine. I'll just show you, that's what it's looking like so far. There we go. And we have another one there. And again, you can mess around with them and you can manoeuvre them. These two are just tied together a little bit, just split them up. And that's what our little poinsettia flower, do you see, looks like. And I have another one, and it's just a slightly different shade of silver. So again, I'm just going to use the 2 different ones, because again, some people in their kit have the darker one and some people have the lighter one, just to show the variation. Also in my kit, I have a couple of silver baubles. And again, I showed you how to wire the baubles earlier. Through the little crown or the loop where normally the ribbon is going through, you stick the wire through, you leave about 3 or 4 centimetres sticking out. You fold it over. You can either twist the wires together, or I actually find it easier to get the long wire, wrap it around the short one, and that's it done. Also in your kit, you'll have a couple of pine cones. So again, you're going to wire up your 6 pine cones. Maybe you've already started on that from the previous video. Again, look at the petals on the pine cone. You're looking for the row of petals as low down as possible, where it's possible to insert a wire through them. You're leaving about 3 or 4 centimetres sticking out. With the long piece of wire, you're going to wrap it around the pine cone in between the petals until the 2 wires come around and they meet each other. Crisscross them over each other, and then with the tops of your fingers, 2 or 3 twists of your fingers and stop. So again, you can wire up to 6 pine cones. Now something different that's in your kit is a little bunch of silver glitter. Now with some people, you'll be full of glitter with this one. With some people, they got these in gold as well. So it's the same idea. So what you're now going to do is you're going to cut these about 8 or 10 centimetres. So hopefully you'll have a strong scissors there, right? So just cut off the individual heads. There's normally about 5 or 6 of them. You can cut that up as well, I'm not going to bother. Now you have to wire up these, okay? So there's a little bit of work in this, but in saying that, this is a simple enough wreath. Hold the end of the stem, and what you're going to do with one of the wires, first of all, you're going to bend over the wire about 3 or 4 centimetres, and you're going to make a hook. It's very similar to the hook that I put through the bauble. Do you remember I made the hook around the loop of the bauble? So this time I'm actually making it in advance. In the florist business, we call this a hairpin bend. You're going to rest, so it's not hooked around it, you're going to rest the hairpin bend horizontal with the stem of the silver piece of glitter or the gold piece of glitter. And you're going to squeeze them or pinch them in together nice and tight. And whichever is your strongest hand, in my case it's my right hand, with your strong hand, you're going to grab the long wire and you're going to wrap it around 2, 3 or 4 times and straighten back out again. I'll do that slower the next time. So again, you get your piece of glitter and you kind of place it horizontal. You get the wire, you bend it over 3 or 4 centimetres and you're making that hook. You're going to rest the hook level, horizontal, with the stem of the silver glitter. You're going to pinch and squeeze them in together with your weaker hand. In my case, it's my left hand. With my stronger hand, my right hand, I'm going to grab the wire. And I find if you hold the wire about halfway down, it's easier. And as if I was winding something up. Can you see that I'm going around 1, 2, 3 times and straighten back out again. And you're going to do that to the 6 or 5 little pieces of silver glitter that happens to be in your kit. So again, the hairpin bend, rest it on the stem, pinch it in, hold the wire halfway down, wrap it around 3 or 4 times and straighten back out again. So wire up all them little pieces of glitter. And now you will kind of have copped on that all the material is wired the same. Even the pine cones, you know, like wrapping it around the pine cone. The idea is that there's a long wire and a short wire, and one wire, normally the longer one, gets wrapped around the shorter one. Now, these little poinsettias, you have to do the same thing to these. So again, get your wire, make your hairpin bend, place it horizontal on the end of the thick wooden stem, squeeze it together, and wrap the wire around 3 or 4 times and straighten back out again. Now you could probably have 2 of these the same colour. I purposely picked 2 different ones just to show you, it's like the selection. But also we have these kind of in a tartan effect, and maybe somebody here tonight has, I keep saying tonight, but today may have the tartan version. When you rewind this tomorrow, it probably will be tomorrow night. So pick a point on your wreath where you would like to put these. And this time I'm going to do it a little bit kind of more modern, where in the previous wreath I divided the 3 poinsettias up, kind of traditional. This time I'm going to pick one side of the wreath and I'm going to place the 2 heads together. I'm using the same technique. The wire is going down into the base, the wire is being hooked underneath, and it's being pressed back up into the wreath frame. Just to show you, that's what it looks like, to see with the one flower. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the 2 flowers close side by side, but yet kind of give them a little bit of an angle, and yet they'll all have their own little space. I'll show you now what I mean. So I have one flower kind of pointing out on an angle slightly that direction, and at one flower pointing slightly angled on the opposite direction. And that's what it looks like. Can you see so far? Now over to this side, this is where I'm going to place in the 3 baubles. So I'm going to place the 3 baubles together. Where again, in the previous wreath, I divided up the baubles, you know what I mean? And I kind of had the 2 or 3 baubles divided evenly around the wreath frame. But this time it's what we're calling grouping. It's where you're keeping all these same items or similar items kind of grouped together. Now again, one of my baubles has a slightly different texture to the other bauble, and that makes it just that little bit more interesting. In another area about here, I'm going to do a group of the glitter. So again, I'm going to place about 2 or 3 of these little glittery heads kind of side by side. So I'm placing it down into the base, and again, the wire is being hooked up underneath all the time. When you see me demonstrating this, you kind of think, oh God, she's just sticking the wire in and she's leaving it sticking down there. But no, every one of the wires, I'm bending them up into a U-bend and sticking them back up into the base, like I showed you in the previous one. Now I'm going to do a little bit of glitter, you see down in this space here. And it's up to you. If you just prefer the one group of glitter, that's absolutely fine. So the same idea, kind of hooked up underneath. Now think about Christmas. Christmas brings the bling out in people. Often we would find, and again some people here today maybe have a kit and it's all like natural material in it, which I'll show you later on as well. But when it comes to Christmas, you kind of find people who normally like natural material will normally be drawn to a little bit of bling or glitter or maybe something completely outside their comfort zone. It is gas to see it. We'd see it here, especially when we did classroom-based classes, where we would have the students, they would arrive and they'd be looking for all natural, and next of all they nearly have the kitchen sink in the arrangement. That's the great thing about a door wreath. And that's what it's looking like so far. Now again, you can add in some pine cones. So I have all my pine cones wired, and again you can add your pine cones on in groups. So again you can put 2 or 3 of them together just to make it a little bit more interesting. And again I'm kind of sticking, there's one of the little strings off the Christmas bauble. So you don't actually need the strings. Sometimes I cut them off, and then sometimes I just completely ignore them and I wire kind of around them. So I've just put 2 cones together there. I'm going to put another 2 cones together over here. And I want to send out like a mixture of larger cones and smaller cones. Sometimes if there's a lot of small cones, I probably would have put a few extra into your kit. Again, it's just for textures. You'll find that with anything in the flower business, it's the more textures you have, the more interesting the item is. Whether it's a flower arrangement, or it's a wedding bouquet, or in our case, it's a Christmas wreath. So again, that's my 6 pine cones, you see, just added into it. And again, I just have another 2 pine cones here, because as I said, in some of the kits I put extra ones in, and I'm just going to add 1 pine cone kind of buried in underneath the flower on this side, and 1 pine cone buried in underneath the little poinsettia on the opposite side. Now you don't have to do that, that's what I've chosen to do there tonight. And that wreath there now, just fix my bow, is ready now to get the hanger on, and it's ready to hang on your door. That one's just completely different to the red traditional one that we did earlier. So again, if that was the material in your kit, off you go and you can get started. And just to kind of keep the kind of atmosphere, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decorate a third wreath now. I'm now going to decorate up the wreath that I put the hessian bow on with the kind of burgundy organza. And these baubles here, this is going to be a bit glitzy, okay? Well, the silver one was quite glitzy as well. These baubles are kind of more of a rose gold, kind of a pinky rose gold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a section and I'm going to put in a group of them together. So I'm going to pick up 3 cones that are kind of like similar to the same ones, to be honest, okay? And again, I'm using that same technique of placing the wire down through the base and the wire is coming up through the other side. Now, as I said, I'm just doing this wreath while you're hopefully going ahead doing your wreath. Now, I know some of you probably have a couple of orange slices, lemon slices or that in your kit, and I will come back to them now in a couple of minutes and I will show you how to use them up. So just in case you're there saying, God, you never showed us how to do the orange slices, I will come back to it now in a second. But as I said, this is just more to keep you going. I don't want to be standing here doing nothing, do you know the way? So while you're decorating your wreaths, I'm just going to go ahead and just decorate this one. So can you see the way I'm putting in the groups of the baubles? So again, I'm going to use 3 more of the kind of like lacy effect one over here. And again, I'm going to keep like 3 of these together. And this is something that maybe you could go. I'm going to mention Dunn's, Penny's, Lidl, Aldi, IKEA. We actually bought these baubles out in IKEA. Where you could go and you could buy, like, you know the way Penny's normally do the box with 48 baubles in it, and you can get them in all different shades of colours, or you can get all the one colour. But sometimes, like with, say, the all gold ones, there's different varieties of golds, you know. So have a look, and again, it's just if you can buy a ribbon that complements it, it just makes it look that little bit interesting. And as I mentioned earlier on, like a person who maybe doesn't normally go for kind of like glitter and glitz and bling, you know that way. Sometimes when it comes to Christmas, it's amazing what Santa and what Christmas can bring out in you. So again, I'm just doing my last one, and I'm actually short one of these glittery baubles. I don't see one there. So listen, I've only got 2 for this section instead of 3. And because we're doing this as a live video, I can't go looking for one, so I'm just going to leave it at the 2. But personally, I would have preferred 3 if I had it. And of course, because I'm on the last bauble sticking it in, it's messing around and it's not going into the base. Now, I'm not finished. What I did then was I got the pine cones, and we actually bought a rose gold spray, like an aerosol spray. I bought it in Lidl and Aldi. Lidl and Aldi had them. They were $3.50. And I sprayed my pine cones the rose gold. So again, it's going to complement it. So in between my groups of baubles, I'm going to put a couple of groups of the pine cones. Now with the pine cones, when you're spraying them, sometimes the spray is more on one side than the other. Now rather than wasting the spray and keep trying to turn the cone around to make sure that you get the spray everywhere on it, what I do is I just kind of spray the most important parts that I see. But when I place it into the arrangement or into the wreath, do you remember I said you can manoeuvre the cone, do you know the way? So I'm sticking the wire underneath, but on top here, I'm still able to manoeuvre the pine cone so that I can have the best side of the pine cone, like looking up. In other words, the side that has the spray on it. So again, I'm just turning it around here, and I'm going to put another little group here. And if you want to mix a couple of the natural pine cones in and out through this one, like you could do that as well, because the natural will work with the spruce. And again, because like it's just like it's not like a real strong colour, this rose gold, so you will get away with having a few natural ones added into it as well. Now I'm not finished. I want to get a few more down to see where the bow is, but that's just showing you a very, very simple Christmas story, just using baubles and pine cones. And the thing about the pine cones is if you have small children, bring them up to the park when the kids all go back to school, around September, end of August, September. Especially when there's after being a storm or a big strong wind the night before. And there'll be oodles of the pine cones on the ground, you know the way. And if you bring them home and then store them somewhere dry, there will kind of sometimes be spiders in them, you know what I mean? So like in a dry shed, and normally at that stage the spiders might run away. But when they're kind of in a warm room, the petals open. Where when they're damp and cold, like when you pick them up off the ground, the petals will actually be closed on them. But they will open up for you, as I said, once they're in a warm room. Some people, I'm just hitting a wire here, some people what they do is they put them into their oven on a low heat to make them open. The only thing is if there's any little spiders, they might be in your oven, don't want to turn you off it. And other people put them in the hot press. So there you have a wreath. I think I nearly have enough there. Just fix my bow around. So the hessian is kind of picking up the naturals, you know that way. The burgundy organza is just kind of picking up the kind of like rose gold colour. And I have some natural pine cones, and I have some, just opening my bow there, and I have some kind of like rose gold pine cones along with the baubles. And again, the only thing that I need now is actually to make a hanger for hanging it on the door. And I'm going to do that again because some of you may be a little bit unsure. Now, how's everybody getting on with their wreath? I know you can't actually talk back to me, but hopefully everybody is going well and they're not stuck. And I am going to come back to the orange slices. So back to the door hanger, cut a length of ribbon. If you want to bring the ribbon up and over the door, maybe go a little bit longer. Hook the ribbon through the centre of the wreath, but try and hide it, like tuck it in between the greenery and the decorations, just to try and camouflage it and hide it a little bit. Get your 2 ribbons and tie them together in a knot. It needn't be a double knot, a single knot is absolutely fine. There we go. And then these 2 pieces of ribbon, tie them in a second knot up the top here, and then trim off any little spare piece of ribbon that's left over. Now, as I said, if you're bringing the ribbon over the top of the door, you'll need to make the hook a little bit longer. And there you go, just get rid of our ribbon there. There you go, there is your hanger to see for the door. Now I'm going to go back to the red base, okay, the traditional red base. And I'm going to show you where we can add in a couple of the orange slices, but you could have lemon slices or even apple slices in your kit. So how they are done, you can wire them individually or you can wire them in 2s. If you get 2 slices and slightly overlap them, get the wire, stick the wire right through the base till it comes through the other side, and bend it over in half. You're having about 3 or 4 centimetres on one side, and you're bending it over, and you can see now it's exactly the same as the hairpin bend. Squash the wire together and wrap one wire around the other, and that's your lemon slices or your orange slices wired. To do them individually, same idea. Just get the slice, stick the wire through, bend it over. Squash it together and wrap one wire around the other, and there's your single slice done. Apple slices, same way. Overlap them, or you can do them individually. Stick the wire through, bend it over, squash it together, and long wire gets wrapped around the short wire. So it's up to you, and again it depends on what's in your kit. Now these will be dried fruit slices, but once they go on your door and they get any way, say damp, you know that way, humidity at all, they actually start to hydrate again, which is absolutely fine. They will last 3 to 4 weeks before they'll actually start to go off, if you want to call it, you know what I mean? So don't worry that when you do hang your wreath outside, especially if it's raining, you know that way, and it will be raining at some stage, don't worry that the fruit slices get hydrated again. They'll be absolutely fine, as I said, and they're not going to go off and they won't fall off the wire. Just that one has a bit of crust on it, so I'll just do this one individually. There we go. Bend it over and then wrap one around the other. And again, I have a double apple slice here. Overlap them. Stick it through. Now I'm going to show you how I can add these couple of slices to the red wreath, because I just feel the colours will work. So back to our red wreath. Now again, maybe in your kit you got the fruit slices and you have a different colour wreath altogether. You know what I mean? I just try to send out a variety of stuff. So by the way, it's the exact same. You pick a spot, you stick the wire down through the base, hook the wire underneath, and that's your orange slice added. And again, if they're the double orange slices, the same technique. The reds and the oranges, or the lemon slices, the reds and the yellows, they can look really, really well. Or even the apple slices. These apple slices have a little red, they're obviously red apples, okay? But you can get them in green apples too. And sometimes the likes of Little Aldi, they had like a cellophane box for sale. I think it was about $3.50. And there was a selection of grapefruit slices, lemons, oranges, limes, and apple slices in the one box. There was actually quite a lot. It was kind of like a potpourri box. So again, if you happen to be in one of the supermarkets, keep an eye out for it. Walk around shops are great for all these kind of like knick-knack ideas. You know what I mean? Once you have the wires now. So now that you've kind of been taught it's 20 gauge wires is what you're looking for, you know, from your local flower shop, you can absolutely wire up anything. So there you go. There's our wreath now with a couple of the lemon slices, orange slices and apple slices going through it. So at this stage I've made 3 wreaths, so hopefully you have made 1 wreath. If anybody does have any problems, you know the way, or you need a little bit of advice, there's no problem dropping us an email. info@flowerschoolireland.com. Just put in the subject bar what group that you're with. If you would like to maybe see some more videos on maybe how to make a table garland or a mantelpiece arrangement, we have a secret page on our website. So go to the website, which is called flowerschoolireland.com. look for the button that has the wreath making kit. Scroll down to the very bottom of that page and you'll see that there's 2 links there that you can click on, and one is how to do a mantelpiece arrangement and one is how to do a dining room table arrangement. If you follow us on Facebook, every Friday morning at 11 o'clock we normally have a free live demonstration. So if you're around, you're more than welcome to join in for that. If you happen to be on Instagram, take a photograph of your door wreath hanging on your door and tag us in it at Case Flower School. I really hope you enjoyed our class tonight. A very, very happy Christmas to you. And listen, you never know, we might see you again for our future classes, maybe to do spring wreaths, summer wreaths and autumnal wreaths. So best of luck. Bye bye.